Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam. So we are here tonight to talk about how we're going to pass municipal resolutions across Massachusetts to support the Make Polluters Pay campaign. I'm Dan. I'm the legislative manager with 350 Mass and co-lead on this campaign with my colleague Rachel. And we're also here tonight with our colleague Evan. Say hi, Evan. Um, cool. So getting started, we represent 350 Mass, Crew, and the Make Polluters Pay campaign, which are the three projects of Better Future Project, the umbrella organization that holds all of us. 350 Mass is our activist network. Many of you are 350 Mass members, so say hi if you are. Um, Crew is a climate resiliency organization. It stands for Communities Responding to Extreme Weather, that, amongst many other things that they do, runs climate resiliency hubs all across the country. And Make Polluters Pay is the campaign to make the biggest oil and gas companies pay billions of dollars over the next 25 years to pay for the cost of climate change. This will protect our communities from extreme weather and all sorts of awful things that we know are coming our way, even if we drop emissions to zero today. This is the campaign to take on the oligarchs and the fossil fuel billionaires and make them pay their fair share. And tonight we're going to be talking really specifically about municipal resolutions, which are a way for a city or town to formally support a piece of legislation. And so they pass a municipal resolution through their city council or town meeting or whatever governing body they use, and we'll get into that a bit later. And they send a formal statement of support to the legislature and the governor. And that's really important. That helps us make the city or town's position clear to the state and will hopefully influence state legislation by sending really direct communication formally from the municipality to the state delegation, the Speaker of the House, the Senate President, and Governor Healy. And those last three are really important. Those are the biggest movers and shakers in our state legislature. They're amazing organizing opportunities to get to know your community and build people power, knocking a really substantive win early on in the campaign. And it helps us envision what we want this money to pay for by tapping into community knowledge about what resiliency looks like. So next up, I think Sam talking about the difference between towns and cities.
Yes. So if you live in Massachusetts, you live either in a town or a city. So we've got way more towns. We have 292 towns in Mass, and we have 59 cities. We will have a chance for you to look this up if you're not sure. But if the place you live has a town meeting, it has to be a town. Cities have city councils instead of town meetings. Now, there is something weird in Massachusetts, which is a town that behaves as a city. So it's called a town, but it has a city form of government. And on the next slide, I have a list of those towns with a city form of government, just so you can clock that if you are living in one of those communities. If we could go to the next slide. All right. So if you live in any of these communities, you have kind of a special case when you are trying to pass your municipal resolution because you are a town with a city form of government. So you can take a look at this list to see if you live in any of those places. You can go to the next slide, please. All right, so what are we going to be doing today? Depending on if you live in a city or a town, you're going to have different rules on passing municipal resolutions. So we'll look into some of those rules. We are going to be discussing a couple of different avenues you can take when passing a resolution, including community organizing. And then we'll run a few example scenarios of what a municipal resolution might look like for the Make Polluters Pay campaign. You go to the next slide, please.
Thanks, Sam. All right. So Dan already introduced me, but just real quickly, my name is Rachel Boyce. I'm the Climate Justice and Resilience Manager for the Better Future Project, and I'm co-lead on this campaign with Dan. And I'm going to talk a bit about community organizing and passing a municipal resolution. As Sam already and Dan and Sam have already set us up, passing municipal resolution not only sends a very strong tool to this, very strong signal to the State House, but is also a very powerful organizing tool. So let's take a step back and look at the basics of organizing, separate from a municipal resolution. Organizing is the process of building power through involving a constituency in identifying problems they share and the solutions in those problems that they desire. Organizing, very simply put, organizing is how we build people power, and that is how we win. We cannot stress this enough. When communities organize together, they win. And passing a municipal resolution in your city or town is just one way to go about community organizing. Organizing pushes you to think intentionally and systematically about how you engage with your community. Through engagement, organizing identifies the communities or individuals most impacted and centers their voice and their leadership to build lasting and sustained localized power. By doing this, organizing contextualizes community members' experiences, and builds a vision for taking action. This whole process changes yours and your community's focus from transactional to transformational, because the importance and power of organizing goes beyond passing just one municipal resolution in support of the Make Polluters Pay bill. The long-term people power you build through this process can transform your community. It connects your community. It builds it into a movement beyond just the Make Polluters Pay bill. Organizing is also skill building and leadership development, because you and your community are learning how to and training others to do what are sometimes really big, complex, and sometimes intimidating things. Next slide. So you're ready to start talking about passing a municipal resolution in your community. I'm going to run, so on the slide after this, don't go there yet, Dan, but on the slide after this, I'm going to talk through one particular scenario of how we pass a municipal resolution in Malden. But before I do that, let's look at some best practices in community outreach. So first and foremost, the best outreach is direct and personal. If you are not already connected to organizations or people in your town or city that are already doing work around climate, introduce yourself, engage with your local community, find out what's happening, do some cold calls, show up at an office, send some emails, get involved, find out who is already having this conversation in your community. This intentional engagement leads to more buy-in and deeper relationships that will again move from this being a transactional process to a transformational process. And now that you have those connections with local organizations, partner with them on passing this resolution. Organizing for a municipal resolution is a really great way to amplify that organization's work to the community, to not only get people involved in that work, but to also get people really excited about that work. We've already talked a little bit about leadership development, but outreach and community building is a really great leadership development opportunity for you and your team, but also for youth. So engage the youth. Their voices need to be part of this conversation. And then, of course, last but not least, one of the most important best practices in doing community outreach is to create a space for broader community education beyond the passing municipal resolution, so that you're able to educate the community on, like, what was the process? What did you learn from it? What does this municipal resolution mean for your community? And also, let's talk about a lot of the work that's happening around climate change that is already happening in your community. Next slide. So the municipal resolution we passed in Malden is a really great example of community organizing around a municipal resolution. The process was initiated by volunteers of the 350 Mass Mystic Valley Node. They assembled a team of city council members, community stakeholders, and other local organizations, and then held planning sessions to talk through community concerns about climate change and identify who was already doing work on climate response in Malden. Together, they planned and hosted a community forum held at Malden Catholic High School, where they had the Mystic River Watershed Association present on heat mitigation work already underway in the city. City Councilor Carrie McDonald presented on the city's newly launched climate action plan to identify the work that the city is already doing, but also to identify big gaps in where the city needs money, and where the Make Polluters Pay bill would be able to fill that gap. And then finally, community activist Zaida Ortiz led an envisioning session for Malden residents to imagine what is possible for their community. And again, looking at alongside of the work that is already happening into their community, what needs to happen in their community, and how the Make Polluters Pay bill can help engage and help empower the community to live into that envision.
There we go. Okay. Yeah, you were. Yeah.
This forum was not only an open space for conversation and actual recruitment for people to attend the actual city council vote and to testify at the city council meeting. It was also just a really beautiful moment of connection between community members and organizations that otherwise would not have intersected. Next slide. So I want to acknowledge that the process for passing the municipal resolution in Malden is an ideal, but is not always something that is possible, given that organizing and community building takes time and takes a lot of capacity. If organizing and community building were easy, everyone would be doing it, but we cannot stress how important it is. There are certain scenarios in which going through this long community organizing process is not going to be possible. And actually, it might be more advantageous if you're living in a city or a town where most of the city councilors are already actually aligned with the principles of the Make Polluters Pay bill. So another situation that we do not have on the slides is when we passed the municipal resolution in Boston. Passing that resolution in Boston was relatively easier because the Boston City Council was very much attuned to the goals of the Make Polluters Pay campaign. So it was more of a presenting the language of a municipal resolution in favor of the Make Polluters Pay bill to the Boston City Council, and they took it from there. So here are the general steps to passing a municipal resolution. First and foremost, research sympathetic city councilors. Find that one city councilor or several city councilors that are already doing a lot of work on climate. Ask them for a meeting and send them a draft of the resolution. We've already prepared a template resolution that we'll send out after the meeting for that you can use in this process. Once you have sent it to the city councilor, edit the template resolution for your particular locality, and you can make some language changes to that, but Dan and I would consult on it. Next, assemble your allies. These are the community, everything that I've already detailed on the previous slides. These are the stakeholders. These are the organizations. These are the community members that this issue is impacting the most, or they're already attuned to this issue, or their voices may not already be part of the conversation, but they absolutely should be a part of the conversation. Once you've assembled your allies, host a community event to discuss and plan testimony. You can follow the template that we had used in Malden and using it as a space to uplift work that is already being done in the community, or you can have it be like a little bit more of a question and answer session on the specifics of the bill. After you have held the community event and you've planned for the testimony, you've recruited people to come to the city council meeting to testify, go to the city council meeting. Your city councilor, your point person, will tell you when it'll be coming before the city council for a vote. Recruit people to come to that meeting, testify in support of the resolution. Then, after you pass it, send out a press release, announce this win to the world. We want to get a lot of press around this. And then last but not least, and so very important, make sure that you celebrate this win, because not only is it sending a strong signal to the State House for your community support of the Make Polluters Pay bill, but you've just done community organizing. This is an awesome win. And next slide. So we're going to move on to an activity that Evan is going to lead us through. But before we move any further, do we have any questions about any of the information we've presented so far, either about the bill specifically or about the process of passing a municipal resolution? Yeah, Ellen.
Yeah, you may cover this later, but in the town that I live in, we have a town manager, we have a select board, and we have town meeting. I'm thinking that probably the best target is the select board. The town manager might not want to do it on her own, and the town meeting is a rat's nest to get into. That's a question in a way. Is that where do you think one should target?
That's a great question. Dan, do you have any thoughts on that? I think that the select board, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it depends town to town. I'm happy to consult as folks figure this out. I will say though, right now we have an experiment running. Our allies in Brookline are angling to be the first to pass one of these resolutions through a town meeting. They have a local petition running, they've brought on some local groups, and I think it's been a really exciting organizing opportunity for them to do local work around this. But they're definitely putting a lot of work into it. So I think it all depends on how much capacity you have and what the dynamics are locally on town meeting. I know that that can draw out a lot of the uncompromising types.
Yeah,
And so we'll talk, and I have a lot of respect for whatever decisions are made based on the realities on the ground.
great, thanks.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Alan. Any other questions before we move on? All right. Thank you. And Evan, I'll pass it off to you.
Thank you. And questions may continue to come up. We'll make sure to loop back at the end. We can come back to any questions that are, still hold up inside you. So why don't we go to the next slide? All right, we're going to talk about power mapping. So power mapping, many of you may have heard this word before. It can refer to a lot of different types of tools people use, but all of these are ways of breaking down a strategy so that we can imagine how we can use our power to influence the change that we want to see. So what we'll first do is go through a little power mapping, activity that I'll show everyone how to use. And then y'all will get a chance to practice thinking about your own town or city. And so, Alan, even to your question, like hold on to that. We can actually play it out a little bit, and maybe it'll help influence the discussion later on. So let's go to the next slide. All right. So for this power map, we're going to talk about influencing a central target. When I say target, I mean this is the person who has the ability to make the decision that you want. So this might be the city council. For instance, when we're thinking about the previous Make Polluters Pay wins, we've targeted the city council members. And our job is to think, how can we influence them? How can we use our power to influence them? So if we can go to the next slide, you'll see that there are people all around your city councilors or whoever this target is at the center who have some direct influence. These are people who can have that conversation or who can, say that thing, put the thing in the press, whatever it is. They can put direct influence on your target. And I don't know if that's you. I'm not sure that that's always me. So we can go to the next slide and think about the people who could influence those influencers. And so maybe to give an example, if you think of your city council, they might be inspired by, the top right blue circle. Those are business leaders. That's your city's business association. Even if you're not in that business association, you might be one of those green circles just past it that influence that because your neighbor might be the chair of the council or whatever, like you can think of how you might be connected to someone who is connected to someone who has the decision-making power. And so looking at a map like this, it might be kind of hard to imagine, the whole web of power and influence, but I wanted to kind of show you the end product so that we can play a little game. So we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so maybe raise your digital hand or virtual hand or physical hand. Has everyone here heard of The Simpsons? Do y'all know about this show? It's, I know it's a deep cut. It's something that's on a lot. Yeah, okay. So enough familiarity. If you are someone who has never seen The Simpsons before, don't you worry. I think there's plenty of people in this crowd who can help you out. So imagine you are Lisa. Lisa's pictured here. And you want to stop the Springfield nuclear power plant from dumping waste into the river. Right, this is a big problem. There's three-eyed fish swimming around. It's clearly an environmental health disaster. And so if we go to the next slide, we're going to figure out how to influence Mr. Burns. Mr. Burns is the head of the nuclear power plant. Many of y'all have heard of him. He's a very scary man. So who in the town of Springfield, where The Simpsons takes place, has direct impact, like could have a direct conversation with Mr. Burns? And folks can raise their hand. I mean, maybe just shout it out. Who are some of the folks closest to Mr. Burns? You can also post in the chat. Yeah, I see Rachel Weinstock says Smithers. Smithers is his loving assistant. So Smithers might be, bottom right circle. Who are some of the other folks who might have influence on Mr. Burns?
A regulator.
Regulators, yep. It's another blue circle, right? Directly impacting the functioning of his business.
A watershed
else?
association.
Watershed Association, managing the river. Yep.
Maybe his wife?
His wife. I don't know that Mr. Burns has a wife, but that is exactly the right thinking, right? Because, oh, cool, we're putting the names on, perfect. But that's such a perfect example because, we often think of the, person with title and then person that they are managed by or directly accountable to. Like, those are all kinds of relationships, but interpersonal relationships matter too. So, yeah, a wife or a daughter or a friend or, these are people who have direct influence in our lives.
There may be a
Any
board
other?
of the company.
Yep. Yep. If there's the board of the nuclear waste plant, I'm sorry, nuclear power plant, sorry. See some mayor. Yep. Residents of the town, the people, like the people who are using the energy from the plant. These are like, the consumers of the product that the plant makes. If you all know The Simpsons, you probably know Homer. Homer's a worker at the plant. Workers can have power here. They can be some of the folks who, can directly impact. They can have influence over the functioning of Mr. Burns's plant. Yep, Homer and his colleagues can unionize. See consumers. Yep, people who use the energy. So these are like Springfield residents. And we're starting to see, I think, just sort of teasing, right? If the mayor is someone who can have influence, the residents of the town can have influence over the mayor. The mayor can have influence over Mr. Burns. If you all know Fat Tony, the head of the Springfield Mafia, he might have some influence over the mayor. Whether or not he has influence over Mr. Burns, it doesn't even matter. He's got, he owns the mayor. Yeah. And if you look at some of these, where do you think Lisa might be? And it may not quite be exactly captured here, as whoever is trying to write is trying to keep up with us. But where might Lisa be able to have impact, even if it's not direct? Where might she fit in? Connie says with the partner. Yeah, Connie, you want to say more?
So I think I just said that because she's so good. But I think also with the regulators, because she's someone that kind of likes to get the facts and figure things out and figure out how to make her argument really strong.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm seeing some like complimentary ideas in the chat. Lisa could meet with the mayor, bring a moral argument, share with the mayor, try to convince him. Meeting with Homer, we talked above, even in the chat, just about the workers at the plant having influence. She's able to talk to her father. And, Homer is very accountable to Lisa. He loves her very much. And so her word can shift him. His word, along with that of the other folks who work at the plant, might be able to influence Mr. Burns.
For school.
Yeah. Do you want to say more, Susan? What do you think Springfield Elementary could do to influence Mr. Burns?
Well, she could talk to classmates and teachers, and they could do some education for the parents, and that would end up getting the residents involved.
Yeah, perfect. All right. So we're starting to see how there's these layers to things. Lisa starting in her home, she like wakes up out of bed. She might not be able to go knock on Mr. Burns's door and make the change she wants to see. but she has all these connections to all these community groups, to workers, to town officials, to institutions like the regulators. And so there's all these different points where she can have her say. She can bring people with her, like her fellow classmates, like the parents, like we were just saying. And so we have Mr. Burns at the center here. He's getting influence from all these different angles. And there's so many ways that Lisa, or, to cut back to our reality, there's so many ways that we can have influence. So thank y'all for like going down this little trip. It's sort of fun to imagine where like Bumblebee Man might fit on this, but I'll let us go to our next part where we're going to imagine how to do this in our own towns or cities. And so what this might look like if you have the city council at the center, or, I know there's a couple different roles people can have in towns. We want to wonder, where do we fit in? And what are the people that we can mobilize who can join this effort? And who are those folks who have some direct influence on the decision makers, who can like say the thing, who can get the job done, who can pull that lever of power to get the city councilors or town meeting, whatever it is, to make the decision that we want to see. So why don't we go to the next slide? All right. So yeah, this lays it out. So who influences your municipal leaders? And then we can imagine, where are we in this map? And so what we'll do is take 10 minutes. Does that still sound good, team? 10 minutes?
Yeah, I think 10 minutes works.
Okay. And we have 19 people here, so maybe groups of 3. So we'll go into breakout rooms, and folks, you'll be with people who are not from your town, but would encourage you to first introduce yourselves, maybe name your town or city where you're calling from, the people you're going to be targeting, and then just as a group, talk through some of the stakeholders that you would want to bring with you, and some of the folks with influence who you would want to make sure are there to directly influence your town council or city council. So I'll write some of this in the chat just so it's written as well. So let's fill out the map for your community. Who are the influencers and who can you influence? Okay. Is someone making breakout rooms, or should I do that quickly?
I have breakout rooms going.
Okay, good. Sorry, Rachel, you were clearly doing it. I saw it on your face, and I was still like,
No,
I'm
that's
checking. All right,
all right.
perfect.
I'm gonna launch those now.
Come back, y'all.
Probably make it
This one. Oh, I'm accidentally gonna mute people. Welcome back, everyone. I know our group was like just having our conversation still right at the end. So I imagine there's a lot of loose threads, maybe some like cool ideas that were just coming up. So first, just want to hear from folks. How was that conversation? What came up for people? We can raise our hands, you can come off mute. We're a small enough crew to have a good conversation.
If I can just relay one thing that one of our members said in the group was the idea of focusing on the fiscal people, the finance committee in your town, where you make it a fiscal issue instead of just a progressive issue. It's something that could bring, could help the town in terms of its finances that are suffering from the results of climate change.
Totally. Thank you, Mary.
All right, there you go.
Hi, this is Carolyn. Those of our Greater Franklin node are all here together. And I think we are a multi-town node. And so we were comparing some of the differences in how the towns work and who knows whom, and what the different, you start with whom you know, and you take it from there.
Were there any people, Karen, I would love to hear more. Were there any like specific individuals or specific groups that came up as y'all were mapping your relationships out?
Go speak to the
Town administrator Jamie Ellen in Franklin, as well as
Toby Frangello on the town council has been a great advocate of ours.
Yeah,
So that would be a starting point for Franklin.
yeah. And in Milford,
Yeah.
it's kind of a closed system.
It is, except John and I know Brian Murray, have known him for years, who is now the rep, but he was town council
He still
and
is town council. He is town council now.
Yeah, he's town council now, as well as a state rep. Yeah. So it's, and then Carrie, you were talking about, are you there still,
Milton?
Carrie?
Yep, I'm here. I'm just
Oh,
trying
there
to,
you are. All right.
yeah, I'm trying to fix my camera.
Yeah. And the thing that the comment that you made is you just don't know who knows important people
right.
that can make a real difference in creating your influencing map.
Like a local animal shelter could have a
Yeah.
connection to your town councilors.
Yeah.
They definitely have connection to the town because a lot of times they have the AOC part of it, and that's so it's like funded, partially funded by the town. So there's some connection there.
Yeah, yeah. It's a matter of pulling the right threads and sometimes you discover that you have connections that you didn't know you had.
Yeah, you never know who's gonna be, your exciting neighbor who has some cool position. You're like, oh wait, I didn't realize you did things other than mow your lawn at, 7 a.m. That's so cool. We'll go Connie, then Dan, then Tucker. So go ahead, Connie.
Well, I want to give a shout out to my group, and Caroline is part of a campus node, and she is going to take on Wellesley. So you can say all this, but I'm so excited about kind of this idea of youth leading the way with people within the town of Wellesley and kind of it bubbling. I think it's going to be a powerful movement there.
Love it. Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, one really useful tool when you're looking at financial ties for people who have run for office, so mayor, city council members, is OCPF, which is the Office of Campaign and Political Finance. And I'll put the link in the chat right now. This allows you to look through finance reports to see who donates to which candidates. And you can see who's giving the maximum donation of $1,000 to various city councilors, which can be a helpful way to track who they're tied to.
Love it. Thank you, Dan. Tucker?
So I live in the town of Milton and absolutely agree about the importance of youth. And also, so schools, Milton has several, from small colleges to, certainly the public schools and independent schools. But the other end of the spectrum, we have some very active senior care facilities who I think one of them has five residents running for town meeting. But they're both from the youth to the wise is important. And we also have a number of voluntary neighborhood groups. There are about 25 of them in Milton, and each one of them advocates for things that matter to them. And finding, it's partly for social, but it's also often issues based. So.
Yeah, I love that. Tucker, thank you so much. It reminds me of, pulling together some of the pieces we've talked about already, like who are the stakeholders in your community as we think of how we advocate for this? And you can think of climate environmental groups. I know a lot of us here come with our environmental and climate hat on, but faith groups, business groups, environmental justice groups. If there's a school in your community or a college, if there's a hospital in your community, right? There's all these different stakeholders that matter to each other, to the fabric of your community, and those people can put pressure on your decision makers. So we'll go to Alan for the last thought before we move on.
Yeah, you just mentioned hospital. We have a hospital in Winchester. That's a thought. But yeah, I in our group, I was sort of thinking of the usual suspects as an environmentalist. You know, we have our Sustainable Winchester, and we have the Climate Action Advisory Committee, and so on, and the houses of faith. But the hard thing is how about the not the usual suspects, like the ones that I'm not really connected with, like a Chamber of Commerce and business groups, and I don't really know how to approach that, or whether we just don't bother approaching them.
That actually came up in our group. I don't know if Mona, you'd want to share some of what you were thinking about, but this was exactly our conversation. You're muted. Mona, you're still muted. Sorry.
Oops, sorry. Yeah, I always like to follow the money. And one of the things I like about this campaign is that it's basically talking about making people those responsible for the problem pay, not the usual, which is taxpayer pay. So I know that our town, we just a little bit, we have we are most of our community is beach. I mean, and the amount of beach degradation has been phenomenal over the last 2 or 3 years in particular. We've had major flooding, and there's a lot of cost associated with that. Meanwhile, we have a special election going on, and they're talking about what kind of cuts we're going to have to do to close the budget, the budget gap. So I'm sitting there listening to this, and I want to get my hands. I want to really dig into the budget situation in our community. I haven't done that, but I will. And I really do think that's an important way to move this communication along. So one of my targets, ultimately, I think if we win this, we have a special election going on. I think if we get the people in, we'll have some real nice allies for a change in the town government. Our community went 48% for Trump in this past elections, to give you an idea. But I think we've got some good allies there. But we have to get the business community in. We have to talk about this in terms of financial viability of our town. And so I'm sorry I'm going on for so long, but I always follow the money. I think that's important. So now there are a million other allies. When we were talking in our group, I realized Mary was talking about the UUA, which happens to be a dominant factor in our community, has made that one Make Polluters Pay one of their important efforts this year. And we do a tremendous amount of work with our local UUA group. So there's faith community opportunity as well as some of the city government.
Who do you mean by UUA? Are you talking the Unitarian Universalists?
Yeah.
Can I just add in there, they have a particular organization associated called UU Mass Action, and they are dedicated to advocacy at the state level in promoting bills that are environmentally good and socially just.
Yeah, UUMass Action's been a great supporter of this campaign. I know a lot of folks on this call have worked with them, part of them, benefit from their work for sure. I see Carolyn emphatically being like, yes. Okay, why don't we go back to the spreadsheet? I do see more hands, but maybe we can come back to this after we finish this last piece of the presentation. So Danny, if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen. All right. So to Dan, I believe.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you all for taking part tonight. I'm going to pass it to Sam to close it out, but just want to remind you, this is how we build power. Right now, we're trying to get as many co-sponsorships as we can, show as much support as we can for this bill, because potentially as soon as May, but also potentially as far off as this fall, we're going to have a hearing. And the legislature is going to decide whether they want to keep this bill moving through the process or shut it down. And this is too urgent to let them shut it down. So we need to work hard, we need to work fast, we need to pass these resolutions to build up the movement to support the bill. And Sam, leave it to you to close us out.
Thank you guys so much. It was really great to hear your perspectives and ideas on this. And I just want to reiterate that we are here to support you in this. So if you have further questions, if you want to continue these conversations, please contact Dan, Rachel, or I. And I will be sending out that toolkit either this week or early next week. So you guys will have that as well. Thank you so much.